Namaste. Aloha, my name is Janapati Das, and this is the Bhagavad Gita class. And I'm going to, as usual, chant some and read some verses from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Reading from chapter 10. And chapter 10 is the opulence of the Absolute. So we are continuing on with that. So please accept my most humble obeisances. Please accept my respectful obeisances, Srila Prabhupada. And let me offer my respects to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So please join along. I'm going to ook here. And you can join me. Siddha Svarupananda Parmam Sanamire Mulakaruna Svarupaya Hare Krishna Prasayade Namo Siddha Svarupananda Parmam Sanamire Mulakaruna Svarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthayate Aja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaurabhakta Vrindam Aja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaurabhakta Vrinda Haribo Nita Gorita Goraribo Haribo Nita Gorita Goraribo Haribo Nita Gorita Goraribo Hare Bonita Gornita Goraribo Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness, ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, so continuing onward. So we had just read, actually previously, this wonderful set of verses to those who are constantly, to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So wonderful. And Krishna, as my spiritual master so wonderfully put, that Krishna comes to the material world out of compassion for the living entities who are lost in the darkness of ignorance. And one of the wonderful ways that Krishna gives himself his compassion is through his pure devotee, the spiritual master. So we were continuing on, text 12 and 13. Arjuna, Uvacha, Param Brahman, Param Damad, Pavrityam, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adidevyam, Ajam Vibhum, Ahustvam, Rishaya, Sarve, Devarshir, Naradaya, Chata, Tata, Asito Devalo, Vyashaha, Svayam, Chaiva, Bravishme. Arjuna Uvacha, Arjuna said, Param Supreme, Brahma Truth, Param Supreme, Dhamma Sustenance, Pavitram Purest, Paramam Supreme, Bhavan Yourself, Purusham Personality, Shashvatam Original, Divyam Transcendental, Adidevam Original Lord, Ajam Unborn, Vibhum Greatest, Ahu Say, Tavam unto you, Rashaha sages, Sare all, Darvashi the sage among the demigods, Narada, Tata also, Ashita, Asita, Devata, Devala, Devala, Vyashaha, Vyasa, Swayam personally, Cha also, Eva certainly, Bravishi explaining me unto me. Translation 12 and 13. Arjuna said, you are the supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the supreme abode, and purifier, the absolute truth in the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original, and you are the unborn and all-pervading beauty. All the great sages, such as Narada, Ashita, Devala, and Vyasa, proclaim this of you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. Purport. In these two verses, the Supreme Lord gives a chance to the modern philosopher, for here it is clear that the Supreme is different from the individual soul. Arjuna, after hearing the essential 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita in this chapter, became completely free from all doubts and accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He at once boldly declares, you are Para Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And previously, Krishna states that he is the originator of everything and everyone. Every demigod and every human being is dependent on him. Men and demigods out of ignorance think that they are absolute and independent of the Supreme Lord Krishna. That ignorance is removed perfectly by the discharge of devotional service. So, in the practice of devotion, and we had referenced this previously, the word bhajatam, which Bhaktivedanta translates as worship in this case, although he also translates in devotional service in the breakdown. But those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love. So bhajam is engaging in devotional service or service to the Supreme Lord. So the ignorance is removed perfectly by the discharge of devotional service. The living entity we say our prayer, I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master came with the torch of knowledge, because I cried out. Cried out. We wanted to inquire into why, you know, the torch of knowledge that removes the ignorance is readily there for everyone, but not everybody wants to take it. That's why Bhaktivedanta refers to the king of all education as the open secret, right? The open secret. It is a secret, but it is open for everyone, but not everybody wants to take it. So the ignorance needs to render loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. And to do that, one must approach humbly and without envy. You can't render devotional service to someone you say you're loving without being humble. And, you know, if you're arrogant and you're envious of the person you're serving, you're not really serving, or you're serving with some means to try to get something from that person. This was already explained in the previous verse by the Lord. Now by his grace, Arjuna is accepting him as supreme truth. In concordance with the Vedic injunction, it is not because Krishna is an intimate friend of Arjuna that he is flattering him by calling him the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. Whatever Arjuna says in these two verses is confirmed by Vedic truth. Vedic injunctions affirm that only one who takes to devotional service to the Supreme Lord can understand him, whereas others cannot. Each and every word of this verse spoken by Arjuna is confirmed by Vedic injunction. So Bhaktivedanta is shedding light on the misinterpretations of scoundrels who pose as scholars. And a prime example of that is where somebody was trying to, at a bookstore, I remember, was telling me about this guy, Oppenheimer, right? Oppenheimer, the guy who was father of the atomic bomb, and he killed himself. But he was, when they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he quoted a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which he apparently had translated. This guy at the bookstore was telling me that he'd done a translation, which I was aware of. I wasn't really aware that he'd done a translation. I knew he knew Sanskrit, and he liked the Bhagavad Gita. But the guy from the bookstore was making one of these kind of bold assumptions that Krishna was trying to show off to Arjuna by showing him his universal form, which we'll get to this. And I was like, Krishna was not trying to show off to Arjuna. He didn't need to show off. He was actually doing that. And this is just kind of a similar example here, that people tend to think of Arjuna flattering Krishna by calling him the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they were friends. People actually think that. Whatever, Arjuna says, okay, so in the Kena Upanishad, it is stated that the Supreme Brahman is the rest for everything, and Krishna has already explained that everything is resting on him. The Mundaka Upanishad confirms that the Supreme Lord, in whom everything is resting, can be realized only by those who engage constantly in thinking of him. This constant thinking of Krishna is smaranam, or one of the methods of devotional service. So we've touched upon the 9 processes of devotional service, which there is hearing, shravanam, kirtanam, smaranam. So hearing, repeating, remembering. So this remembering is you have to think about, and this is an aspect of Krishna consciousness. At the time of your death, or when you have to leave your body, the idea is to try to have been engaging in the process of Krishna consciousness, or smaranam, so that you remember Krishna at the time of death, instead of remembering all the other nonsense stuff that people put in their brain and think about. You know, we think about, as Americans, we've watched so many movies, read so many books, we watched so much TV shows, we talked about so much blah, blah, blah. You know, I cited, I think last time, the example of people having a discussion about which fast food place has the best coffee, and they go on and on and on about it. I mean, this is valuable time where you can be utilizing this precious human form of life to be thinking about Krishna, to be thinking about your future, not just the future in this body, but the future in general. Where are you going? What are you doing in this life? Are you being pleasing to the Supreme Lord in what you're doing in this life? Why do you exist in this life? What is your purpose? You know, things that are very heavy instead of very superficial things, which Srila Prabhupada has said that many people are afraid to go deeper into the spiritual life. Like they're going to miss out on something. It is only by devotional service to Krishna that one can understand his position and get rid of this material body. So otherwise we are doomed to take on other bodies, and it's not guaranteed that we're going to go right into another human body. In fact, most people will probably, because of their activities in this body, will go into a lower form of species in the next life. In the Vedas, the Supreme Lord is accepted as the purest of the pure. One who understands that Krishna is the purest of the pure can become purified from all sinful activities. Yeah, there was this example of, you think of I think Acharya Das, my godbrother, mentioned this idea of dog poop, like a freshly pooped dog poop. And when you think about that, it's just nasty, if you ever stepped in it and you get in a car and you're spreading it around, it's just like, oh, what did I do? It's all over my shoe, and then you got to clean it out, and it's just disgusting, right? It's the embodiment of impurity, right? But that poop, if it sits out in the sun long enough, the sun is a purifying agent, purely purifying. So then what happens to the poop? The poop eventually dries up, becomes white. It's becoming purified of its impurities, and it just breaks down into this whitish kind of, and then it takes on, all the bugs come in and break it down into soil, and then the impurities of that poop are purified. And actually, I think it's as a Peace Corps volunteer, a little tidbit of information I learned about human feces is that you can store the human feces in a composting tank for up to, I think, 10 months to 12 months. And that in itself, it's nitrates and whatnot, and its impurities are, people will put it on, but it carries bacteria and parasites and things like that when you try to put it into your field or whatever, that you try to use it as for the nitrates to grow your crops, right? So you don't just take a crop out in the middle of a field. In fact, that's really gross. But if you keep it in a composting tank, after a while, it's the same kind of thing. The impurities, it breaks down. It actually is very rich, and it takes on the quality of a compost. At that point, after a year, you can take it and you can spread it, and it's not going to attract parasites or bugs or bacteria. So the point being is that Krishna is the purest of all pure, and being in contact with Krishna, Krishna's names, the pastimes of Krishna, the literatures of Krishna, the Vedic scriptures of Krishna, the devotee of Krishna, engaging in Krishna activities is a purifying element because it is non-different than the complete pure. It is completely pure. Krishna is all purifying, and his names are all purifying. So it will and it can purify the sinful activities of a living entity. One cannot be disinfected from sinful activities unless he surrenders unto the Supreme Lord. Arjuna's acceptance of Krishna as the supreme pure compiles with the injunctions of Vedic literature. This is also confirmed by great personalities, of whom Narada is the chief. So they cite examples of great sages, the devotees and spiritual masters in our lineage. Narada, Sita, Devala, Vyasa, great devotees of Krishna who are non-different expansions of Krishna's mercy. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should always meditate upon him and enjoy one's transcendental relationship with him. He is the supreme existence. He is free from bodily needs, birth and death. Not only does Arjuna confirm this, but all the Vedic literatures, the Puranas, and histories. So here in the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the source of all things. That the Bhagavad Gita is about Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. He is, to know that, to try to deny that, or try to run circles around it, or try to interpret it, like going through the back door and interpreting and doing mental gymnastics, which is what some commentators will do, is really challenging. In fact, a lot of impersonalist yogis will just take part of the Bhagavad Gita and translate the parts that they want, because they know the further they get in, the harder it gets to try to prove their point of God being an impersonal force. Okay. In all Vedic literatures, Krishna is thus described, and the Supreme Lord himself also says in the 4th chapter, although I am unborn, ajam, unborn, I appear on this earth to establish religious principles. He is the supreme origin. He has no cause, for he is the cause of all causes, and everything is emanating from him, as stated in the Sri Ishopanishad as well. This perfect knowledge can be had by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Here Arjuna expresses himself through the grace of Krishna. If we want to understand Bhagavad Gita, we should accept the statements in these 2 verses. This is called the Parampara system, acceptance of disciplic succession. And when we read earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, we read our Sampradaya Parampara, of which my Srila Prabhupada and my spiritual master Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada are part of, including great saintly people such as Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, Chakravarti Thakur. We have Lord Chaitanya, so many great saints, Bhaktisiddhanta, Saraswati Gaur Kishordas Babaji, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and so many. And we can, if you have this, you can look at our Sampradaya. Of course, our spiritual master Jagadguru Siddhaswarapananda is also in this after Bhaktivedanta, being the disciple of Bhaktivedanta. So this is the Parampara system, one after another, right? Acceptance of the disciplic succession. Unless one is in the disciplic succession, he cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. It is not possible by so-called academic education. Unfortunately, those proud of their academic education, despite so much evidence in Vedic literatures, stick to their obstinate conviction that Krishna is an ordinary person. And so you have people like Oppenheimer and many of the other so-called scholars of the Bhagavad Gita who have classified Krishna as being an ordinary human being, or a myth, or a just not real. Like the real undifferentiated truth was the voice of the Brahman speaking through Krishna, and just all kinds of nonsense like that. But everything is very clearly laid out here by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Text 14. Sarvam etad ratam manye yanmam vedashi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devana danavaha. Sarvam all. Etat these. Ritam truths. Manye accept. Yat which mam unto me. Vedashi you tell, Keshava, O Krishna. Na, never. He, certainly. Te, your. Bhagavan, O personality of Godhead. Vyaktim, revelation. Vidu, can know. Devaha, the demigods. Na, nor. Danavaha, the demons. Translation, text 14. O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. neither the gods nor demons, O Lord, know thy personality. Arjuna, purport. Arjuna herein confirms that person of faithless and demoniac nature cannot understand Krishna because of their enviousness. This is why we said, Krishna says to Arjuna, because you are not envious of me, I can impart this knowledge which will bring you great joy. Right? And here he's stating that those people that are envious of Krishna or faithless or have demoniac nature cannot understand Krishna despite having a multitude of material knowledge, cannot have any entrance at all into the absolute truth. They just don't get it. Arjuna herein confirm. Okay, so I read that. He is not even known by the demigods. So what to speak of the so-called scholars of this modern world? By the grace of the Supreme Lord, Arjuna has understood that the supreme truth is Krishna and that he is the perfect one. One should therefore follow the path of Arjuna. Yeah, we follow in the footsteps of the great devotees. We don't try to imitate the great devotees, but we follow in the footsteps of. This is what acharya means, to one who has followed in the footsteps of the spiritual masters in the past. He received the authority of Bhagavad Gita, as described in the 4th chapter. The parampara system of disciplic succession for the understanding of Bhagavad Gita was lost, and therefore Krishna reestablished that disciplic succession with Arjuna because he considered Arjuna his intimate friend and a great devotee. Yeah, and Krishna, being the absolute truth, could actually see that and reinstate the broken lineage. You would say, well, okay, if a lineage has been broken, like, for example, Islam was given to the Prophet Muhammad by Allah, and he handed it to his disciples, but within very shortly after his death, there was a faction split in philosophies and people fighting over who was going to be the new leader of Islam. And so to this day, maybe not as much as Christianity, but Islam has many factions. It's something like eight or nine different schools of Islam, or factions, or little splits, just like you have in Catholic and Protestant and Catholic and Lutheran and whatever, Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses, and you have all kinds of Methodists and different people. They have a little different tweak, and that's a different branch of Christianity, saying, what I think, I'm gonna, but there's no real authentic disciplic lineage from Lord Jesus Christ. He did set up a disciplic lineage, but our spiritual master can understand that he was teaching bhakti because of being a pure devotee of Krishna. Because we would know that Lord Jesus Christos was a bhakta. So, where did I leave off? By the grace of the Supreme Lord, Arjuna has understood that the supreme truth is Krishna and that he is the perfect one. One should therefore follow the path of Arjuna. He received the authority of Bhagavad Gita, as described in the 4th chapter. The parampara system of disciplic succession for understanding the Bhagavad Gita was lost, and therefore Krishna reestablished that disciplic succession with Arjuna because he considered Arjuna his intimate friend and a great devotee. Therefore, as stated in our introduction to Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita should be understood in the parampara system. When the parampara system was lost, Arjuna was again selected to rejuvenate it. The acceptance of Arjuna and all that Krishna says should be emulated. Then we can understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, and then only can we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, the pretext of the Bhagavad Gita, with Krishna being a spiritual master to Arjuna, this is again reflected very thoroughly in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we started. Even within a few verses, we would understand that there was Sutta Goswami was imparting as a spiritual master to the sages of Naimisharanya at the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And also Narada Muni was instructing to his disciple Vyasadeva. So these are great, perfect disciples and perfect spiritual masters. And the system of handing down through a parampara, handing down the absolute truth that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is the way that we receive the descending, through the descending process, how we receive Krishna, how we receive the absolute truth. And it's all received in a humble state of mind. Even if Arjuna initially had his own ideas about things, Krishna kept working him through it, and then eventually Arjuna was like, okay, tell me what the absolute truth is. Let me ask my questions, and you can tell me, and I will accept it. I mean, Arjuna could have been like many people are in the material world and just, but you know what I think, you know what I think, you know what I think. And so it's just one person's opinion versus Krishna's opinion. And then you get people just like one person trying to hoist his opinion over the spiritual master. And so this does happen. People are not really interested in knowing the absolute truth. They're not really receiving, they're not really listening, they're not really considering at all. They just have what's in their head. And this is, it's kind of like why discussion on political subject matters on the internet is a waste of time, because people already have their opinion. Even if it's not a very good, well-supported, argumentative opinion, they have their opinion. They're going to throw it out there thinking that somehow or another they're going to enlighten everybody. But meanwhile, everyone else on there has their own opinion too. So they're going to say, well, you know what I think, da da da. And then they're on this board of 10,000 people shooting out what they think, what I think, as Bhaktivedanta is so famously coined, and our spiritual master too, that the drunk in the gutter has an opinion. So we don't really take value in that. This is not the way that the absolute truth is, not the way the spiritual life should be run. Text 15. Svayam evat manatmanam veta tavam purushatam bhuta bhavana bhutesha deva deva jagatpate. Svayam, personality. Eva, certainly. Atmana, by yourselves. Atmanam, yourself. Veta, no. Tavam, you. Purushatam, O greatest of all persons. That's a great name, Purushatam. Bhuta Bhavana, O origin of everything. Bhutesha, O Lord of everything. Deva Deva, O Lord of all demigods. Jagat Pate, O Lord of the entire universe. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own potencies, O origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods. And in that, he says God, capital G, of God, small g. So when we talk about gods, it's not like there are multiple gods, but there are what we know as the Devan, or the demigods, who are empowered living beings. But they are also conditioned living beings. But they are kind of like mini gods, but they are not. They don't stand on the same level as Krishna, even though many people think of Krishna as just one of the gods, along with Ganesh and Shiva and Durga and Saraswati and all these different gods and demigoddesses, and Krishna is just one of those people. O Supreme Person, Lord of the universe. So Jaya Jagadisha, Jaga is the Lord of the universe. It also means that, like we have Jagat Guru. Jagat would mean the universe. It could also mean the world. And our spiritual master is the teacher of the whole world. Jagat Guru. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, can be known by persons who are in relationship with him. through the discharge of devotional service, like Arjuna and his successors. Persons of demoniac or atheistic mentality cannot know Krishna. Mental speculation that leads one away from the Supreme Lord is a serious sin, and one who does not know Krishna should not try to comment on Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a statement of Krishna, and since it is the science of Krishna, it should be understood from Krishna as Arjuna understood it. It should not be received from atheistic persons. So here it even says, Bhaktivedanta is making the point that it's actually quite offensive to be trying to put your own you know what I think about what the Bhagavad Gita means, and I think it means this and means that, just because from my own mental speculation. It's actually sinful, because most times they give false narrative of Krishna. They don't understand who Krishna is, and so they give false narrative and false ideas about Krishna, or they deny his existence, which is also an offense. The supreme truth is realized in three aspects: an impersonal Brahman, a localized Paramatma, and at last as the supreme personality of Godhead. So at the last stage of understanding the absolute truth, one comes to the supreme personality of Godhead. A liberated man and even a common man may realize impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, yet they may not understand God's personality from the verses of Bhagavad Gita, which are being spoken by this person, Krishna. Sometimes the impersonalists accept Krishna as Bhagavan, or they accept his authority. Yet many liberated persons cannot understand Krishna as Purushottam, the Supreme Person, the Father of all living entities. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Purushottam. Arjuna is making that point, that he understands who he's talking to. And if one comes to know him as the Father of all living entities, still one may not know him as the Supreme Controller. Therefore, he is addressed here as Bhutesha, the Supreme Controller of everyone. And even if one knows Krishna as the Supreme Controller of all living entities, still one may not know that he is the origin of all the demigods. Therefore, he is addressed as Deva Deva, the worshipful God of all demigods. So Arjuna, in one sentence, 2 sentences, I guess, through the titles, Bhutesha, Deva Deva, Purushottam, these names of God, addresses and makes very clear about the position of who Krishna is. So there is no doubt. There should be no doubt. And if one knows him as the worshipful God of all the demigods, one may not know that he is the supreme proprietor of everything. Therefore, he is addressed as Jagatpati. The supreme truth about Krishna is established in this verse by the realization of Arjuna, and we should follow in the footsteps of Arjuna to understand Krishna as he is. So this is a derivative. Jagatpati is also like Janapati. Janapati means the Lord and master of all the people. So as Janapati Das, I am the servant of the Lord of all people, Sri Krishna. Okay. One more verse. Text 16. Bhaktum Maharashi Ashe Shena Divya Hityatma Vibhutaya Yabir Vibhutibir Lokan Imam Stram Vyapya Tishtashi Vaktum to say Arhasi deserve Ashe Shena in detail, Divya divine, he certainly, Atma yourself, Vibhutaya opulences, Yabihi by which, Vibhutibihi opulences, Lokan of all the planets, Imam these, Tavam you, Vyapya pervading, Tishtashi remain. Translation text 16. Please tell me in detail of your divine power by which you pervade all these worlds and abide in them. So here Arjuna is asking more questions for Krishna to please talk more about the opulence of him. In this verse, it appears that Arjuna is already satisfied with his understanding of the Supreme Lord Krishna. By Krishna's grace, Arjuna has personal experience, intelligence, and knowledge, and whatever else a person may have through all these agencies, and he has understood Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For him, there is no doubt, yet he is asking Krishna to explain his all-pervading nature so that in the future people will understand, especially the impersonalists. So here it's clearly stated that Arjuna is making inquiry or asking Krishna to show his diverse energies so that the people who are monists will understand that what they're trying to state is not true. How he exists in his all-pervading aspect through his different energies. One should know that this is being asked by Arjuna on behalf of the common people. Text 17. Katam vidyam aham yogims tvam sada parichintayan keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. Katam, how? Vidyam aham, shall I know? Yogin, O Supreme Mystic, Tvam, you. Shada, always. Parichintayan, thinking. Keshu, by which. Keshu, in which. Cha, also. Bhaveshu, nature. Chintaha, she, you are remembered. Bhagavan, O Supreme, Maya, by me. How should I meditate on you? In what various forms are you to be contemplated, O blessed Lord? Purport. As stated in the previous chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is covered by his Yoga Maya. Only surrendered souls and devotees can see him. Now, Arjuna is convinced that his friend Krishna is the Supreme Godhead, but he wants to know the general process by which the all-pervading Lord can be understood by the common man. No common man, including the demons and atheists, can know Krishna because he is guarded by his Yogamaya energy. Again, these questions are asked by Arjuna for their benefit. So Arjuna is asking not really out of ignorance completely, but in compassion for future living entities, so that the information is very clear preset by the questions. The superior devotee is not only concerned for his own understanding, but for the understanding of all mankind. Out of his mercy, because he is a Vaishnava devotee, Arjuna is opening the understanding for the common man as far as the all-pervasiveness of the Supreme is concerned. He dresses Krishna specifically as Yogin, because Sri Krishna is the master of the Yogamaya energy, by which he is covered and uncovered to the common man. The common man who has no love for Krishna cannot always think of Krishna, therefore he has to think materially. Arjuna is considering the mode of thinking of the materialistic persons of this world. Because materialists cannot understand Krishna spiritually, they are advised to concentrate the mind on physical things and try to see how Krishna is manifested by physical representations. Okay, so very interesting. I think we can go on. Still got a little bit more time. Text 18. Vishtarin atmano yogam vibhutim cha janardan bhuyat kataya triptihi shrinvato nashti me mritam. Vishtarena, in description, atmana, of yourself, yogam, mystic power, vibhutim, opulences, cha, also, janardan, O killer of the atheists, bhuya, again, kataya, describe, tripti, satisfaction. He is certainly shrinvata, hearing, naashti, there is no me, my, amrityam, nectar. Tell me again in detail, O Janardhan Krishna, of your mighty potencies and glories, for I never tire of hearing your ambrosial words. Beautiful. Same way that when we listen to our spiritual master is the external manifestation of Krishna, we are hearing from the Paramatma, from Krishna, and it is like ambrosial words. So something that's very like nectar, when it's nectar, it's very sweet and very attractive. You just want to continuously drink it. Whereas most of all materialistic things, with that which seems very sweet in the beginning is bitter in the end, as it's said. So we might be very attracted. We think, oh, this new album is coming out, or this new movie, or, oh, I love this food. But, the more and more we eat that food, then we get kind of like, oh, okay, I'm kind of sick of that food. But when we hear the words of Krishna, we may initially approach it and think, oh, it's not very attractive. It's kind of bitter. I'd rather be doing that thing over there. But then as we engage in hearing Krishna's words more and more, and as our heart becomes purified, we can't get enough of it. We want to keep coming back to it. So this is what Arjuna is talking about. A similar statement was made to Sutta Goswami by the rishis of Naimisharanya, who we're talking about in the Srimad Bhagavatam, headed by Shaunaka. That statement is Vayam tu na vitripyama utama shloka vrikame yatrin vatam rasha gananam svadu pade pade. One can never be satiated. Satiated. It's like, completely full. Right? One can never be satiated even though one continuously hears the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, who is glorified by Vedic hymns. Those who have entered into a transcendental relationship with Krishna relish in every step descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord. Thus, Arjuna is interested to hear about Krishna, specifically how he remains as the all-pervading Supreme Lord. Now, as far as Amritam, nectar, is concerned, any narration or statement concerning Krishna is just like nectar. We love to hear about Krishna's pastimes, even when he's naughty, especially when he's naughty. If we hear somebody, we have these examples of like teenage ruffians doing things, causing problems and distress, and we're just like, oh, that's terrible. But if we hear Krishna doing it, we're like, that's wonderful. That's really awesome. So we love to hear that. We love to hear Krishna's stories. It's just like nectar. And this nectar can be perceived by practical experience. Modern stories, fictions, and histories are different from the transcendental pastimes of the Lord in that one will tire of hearing mundane stories, but one never tires of hearing about Krishna. It's like, somebody you meet, I think about this kind of thing where, like, for example, I'm married, so it's kind of like when I first met my wife and I told them stories that were very exciting in my life, they're like, oh, wow, that's really neat. But then I find myself as I get older and I forget that I tell these stories, like you kind of tell your kids the same stories over and over and over again because they're meaningful. And the kids are like, oh, yeah, Ma, all right, Dad, I've heard that already. Yeah, you told me already, honey. So it's like, that's what modern stories are like. But Krishna, you're like, oh, yeah, Krishna, yeah. You want to hear, what's going to happen, but you're just like, oh, wow, yeah, really. Can't wait to see what happens. But one never tires of hearing about Krishna. It is for this reason only that the history of the whole universe is replete with references to the pastimes of the incarnations of Godhead. For instance, the Puranas are histories of bygone ages that relate to the pastimes of various incarnations of the Lord. In this way, the reading matter remains forever fresh, despite repeated readings. So I've been reading this Bhagavad Gita and reading the same verses and the same purports for over 20 years, and this is just wonderful. Every time I read it, something new, something fresh, something revealing. And so that was Arjuna's question, and then we're going to get into what Arjuna says, and I'm going to actually save that for next time because Krishna goes into a lengthy answer through the rest of this chapter. And so I will save that for next time. I like to leave that cliffhanger, and you're probably like, oh, I can't wait to see. So that's the wonderful thing of Krishna and the literatures of Vedic scriptures. All right. Thank you very much. Namaste.